Hello everybody, Ghostblade 1062 here with another locomotive review. Today we will be looking at a Scale Trains Rivet Counter ES44AC in the new Canadian Pacific Kansas City scheme. Scale Trains having been the first manufacturer to bring out any locomotives in this particular scheme. And the one that we will be looking at today is road number 4805, which is a former Kansas City Southern locomotive. And now we will move on to the unboxing. Alright, taking a look at the box here for the new CPKC locomotive, we have a custom scheme on the box with the CPKC beaver logo on the front as well as the three flags, this being Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Off to the left hand side of the box here we have the Scale Trains logo as well as their website, and towards the center of the box here we have the Rivet Counter logo. The bottom and top have the website and address and phone number for Scale Trains. Then the left hand side has the Scale Trains logo and Rivet Counter logo as well as their website, as well as an age restriction warning and an icon depicting that this model is an HO scale. On the right hand side of the box we do have a bit more though. Here, first of all, we have a painting of the locomotive, and then here we see it is DCC and sound equipped. It is a GE ES44AC in the CPKC scheme, KCS number 4805. It is equipped with a lock sound decoder in HO scale from Scale Trains Rivet Counter line, and it is product ID SXT 39925. And then looking at the back of the box, had to rebalance my tripod there for a moment. First we have some history about the railroad, followed by a list of features which is quite extensive. And then we have some manufacturer information as well. And now, opening up the box. First of all, we have our instruction manual here. Which is a nice little booklet instead of the folding ones you usually get. And here we have an introduction, we have prototype information, we have handling information, cleaning instructions, lubrication instructions, operational instructions for both DC and DCC, decoder installation instructions. Then we have our function chart, and this locomotive has up to 32 functions. Then we have more detailed instructions for some of these functions. We have information about the ESU power pack that's installed. We have programming instructions. As well as some of the CVs. If you want to take the time to read any of this, feel free to pause the video. But moving on, we'll remove this foam cover, which is nice and firm. We have the locomotive in this clamshell, surrounded by foam, which keeps it nice and safe. And now sliding off this outer sleeve. So included as well, we have some spare rotating bearing caps in case you lose some. And now onto the locomotive itself. Opening up the clamshell. And first of all, we'll remove the first one already popped off on its own, but we gotta remove these truck immobilizers. Otherwise you risk the locomotive falling over and being damaged. As well as we have foam supports to keep the handrails nice and straight, which we will just take out. Nice and carefully. There we go, that's this side done. And here we are. And here we have the locomotive. And up next, we will move on to the detail overview. Okay, time to take a closer look at the model. Starting at the front of the locomotive. Here we have our silver-tipped brake and air lines right in front of the plow. We have our Scale-Train's plastic knuckle coupler, and above that we have our first grab irons, which are painted nicely in a separate white color. Then above that, right at the top of the walkway here, we have our front ditch lights. And going up our handrails to the top here, we have a plastic molded chain in white. Then off to the left side here, we have a first aid kit. And across the front center here, we have the CPKC logo with grab irons going up to the top of the hood with more grab irons there. We also have our molded in door, which leads into the cab with window. And we have our headlights right beside the door here. Then looking on top of the nose, we have our sand filler hatches. And we have our clear front windows with separately fitted windshield wipers and grab irons above those. And above that, we have our number plates. And we can actually see inside of the cab here. If I can get a clear shot. Now moving on to the side. Above the windows here, we have our sunshade. And below that, the windows, we have our road number, so this being 4805. We have the ES44 AC low branding here. And below the 05, we have the KCS markings, telling us that this unit was a former KCS locomotive. Then moving along the side here, we have our AC power conversion boxes here, as well as our etched fan units here. We have our separately fitted plastic handrails going along the side of the unit, leading us to the center where we have the CPKC reporting marks and beaver shield. Then looking at the trucks, we have some nice brake and suspension detailing, as well as this unit has the painted axles, which have more of a rust color to them, and rotating bearing caps. Then we have our air valve here. And going along the fuel tank, we have our emergency shutoff and fuel gauge. And then going further along the side, we have, on our rear truck, we have this chain detailing. And then we have our separately fitted brake wheel alongside the radiator housing on the back of the locomotive. Looking at the back here, we have our plastic silver-tipped airline and brake hoses right above the plow. We have our handrails going up on either side. And then across the back here, we have the CPKC reporting marks as well as the road number on either side of the rear lights. Then looking at this side, we see much of the same detailing, including the engine housing doors. We have our cab access door here, all nicely molded in and visible. Going on along the side, we have numerous warning labels as well. And then along the fuel tank here, we have 2 air reservoir tanks. And now, then going to the cab, we again have our road number and locomotive type, as well as the KCS marking, and which I didn't mention on the other side, but it's there. We got the 3 flags, so the Mexico, US, and Canada flags. And now looking at the top of the locomotive, starting at the front, we have our antenna array here, followed by numerous hatches. Then we have our separately colored 5-chime horn. And then behind that we have our rectangular exhaust stack. And then going towards the back of the locomotive, we have our etched radiator fans, and looking through these fans, you can actually see the fan units. So all in all, a very nicely detailed locomotive. Gotta be careful with the handrails, as they are quite fragile. And next, we will move on to the rip track segment, where I will be checking coupler height as well as wheel gauge and replacing the couplers. Alright, welcome to the rip track segment. Here, I am going to go over coupler height, the axle gauge, and then I will be replacing the couplers with KD number 158s. Starting off with the rear coupler, we are sitting pretty spot on, if not just a touch low. And moving to the front coupler, we are spot on. So a great job to Scale Trains there for having the couplers at proper height. And now zooming back, and so that I can check the axle gauge. Starting with the front truck, all 3 axles are engaged. And now onto the rear truck. The axles are also engaged. So all 6 axles are perfectly engaged. And now we will move on to replacing the couplers. Alright, to replace the couplers, we gotta first unscrew the coupler boxes. And these ones do have quite the long screw. There we go. That is the front coupler box out. Which we can just pop open like that. Letting us take out the coupler and put in the new one. And now trying to get this back together. There we go, that's the coupler box back together. Our coupler moves freely in there. And it just slides right back in. So now we can move on to screwing the coupler back on. And this does take a few moments because the screw is quite long. But here we go, that is the front coupler replaced. And now, to repeat the process on the rear, okay, that is the rear coupler box reassembled. Coupler centers, no problem. And that is the new Katy couplers installed. And now to verify the height of the couplers. So my rear coupler is actually sitting a bit low right now. Actually, both of my couplers are currently sitting low. So I'll do some more adjusting to that off camera. And I will bring you all back for a function test. Alright, time to begin our function test. Starting with function 0, the directional lighting. Function 1 is the bell. Function 2 is the horn with additional bell sound. Function 3 is coupler sounds. Or supposed to be. Function 4 is dynamic brakes. Function 5 is DPU or class lights. Function 6 is the ditch lights. Which do not function if function 5 is active. And this model does not have the flashing ditch lights. And now function 8 is the prime mover startup and operating sounds. And we can see on the locomotive we do also have functioning truck lights and walkway lights, as well as lit number board lights. Function 9 is the drive hold. Function 10 is the independent brake. Function 11 is radiator fans. Function 12 is a headlight dimmer. Which the dimmer also turns off the ditch lights. Function 13 is the air dryer. Function 14 is unassigned. Function 15 is an isolation switch. Function 17 is the auto brake set and release. Function 18 is the sanding valves. Function 19 is a short air let-off. Function 20 is the air compressor. Function 21 is coupler sound, is the handbrake, though it's sounding more like function 21 is coupler sounds and function 3 is the handbrake. So those two are actually reversed from what it says in the manual. Function 22 is the cab door sound. Function 23, the engine hood door. Function 24, the reverser center. Function 25 is cooling shutters. Function 26 is manual notch up. 27 is manual notch down. Followed by function 28, which is the manual notching logic. Function 29 is load simulation. And finally, function 30 is the automatic brake. And now for a slow speed test. I have this locomotive programmed for 128 speed steps. So let's see how it does at speed step 1. We are seeing a nice, smooth, slow motion, no jerkiness. And next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this locomotive run in, and then we'll do some test runs with a freight train. Alright everybody, this concludes my review of the Scale Trains Rivet Counter ES44AC in the new Canadian Pacific Kansas City scheme. All in all, the locomotive was very well made. It was very nicely detailed. It runs beautifully. The slow speed control was nice and smooth even before running it in. There was no jerkiness even on speed step 1 of 128 there. The only thing that I did notice later on while I was working on getting the couplers to the proper height was that there was a bit of overspray on the wheels. So the rust orange coloring did actually go around onto the wheels themselves, which is a bit of a shame, but it is a minor detail, all things considered, on an otherwise beautiful locomotive. And running in, it had no issues, and I am looking forward to reviewing its counterpart. This one having been a former Kansas City Southern locomotive, and the other one is a former Canadian Pacific locomotive, which I will be reviewing shortly. So, that being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like or a comment and subscribe for more model railroad content. Have a great day, everybody.